Ellis reduces mental wellness to a simple mnemonic: A, B, C. He breaks this down. A stands for an activating event or adversity. B refers to a belief that, in contrast with the activating event, actually causes mental distress. And C, consequences. These are consequences in the form of intense emotion or maladaptive behavior that arise because of a faulty belief. Ellis makes this distinction clear. Adverse circumstances and life events do not cause long-term depression or anxiety. Rather, it is self-defeating beliefs and cognitions that lead to mental unwellness. Therefore, Ellis says it's the client's responsibility to interrupt and reframe the beliefs about life's changes to make themselves happy. For example, if a client wants to succeed in a romantic relationship and fails, this is an activating event. This activating event could be followed by a destructive belief, such as, I have to find a partner. I can't be happy without one. I'm not desirable. I'm not good with women or men. I can't just keep trying and failing, etc. The result of this kind of inelegant language in the mind, if left unchecked, is psychological suffering. This is the consequence. And this could be in the form of depression, anxiety, or repeated failure based on shame and insecurity. An individual could withdraw from opportunities to find a partner, or limit their enjoyment as a single person. Ellis acknowledges that emotional responses to adverse events are healthy and normal, but we're disappointed when we fail, but that they do not lead to clinically significant psychiatric disorders. The latter are caused by the maladaptive beliefs that occur in response to adverse events. Thus, Ellis places the responsibility for wellness squarely in the lap of the sufferer by asking them to use more philosophically sophisticated internal language. Fundamental to Ellis' perspective is Eastern philosophy's illusion of the self. The self-concept can become rigid, making interaction with the world frictive. In the attempt to know ourselves, we humans often create concrete storylines about our intrinsic nature, cognitive delusions that we cling to, despite the evidence drawn from interaction with our interpersonal environment. This can lead to framing distressing life events as negative interpretations of our fundamental character, personality, or self, and this results in depression and anxiety. Ellis even warns that thinking of oneself as a good person is an irrational cognition that will undoubtedly meet with contrary evidence in our daily activities. If you think you're good, you can also think that you're bad. This is a black and white perspective that can lead to socially dangerous arrogance on the one hand, or shame on the other. Ellis cites the American psychologist George Kelly, who demonstrated that human cognition tends toward dichotomous categorizations of the world. However, our entropic world cannot be categorized, despite our best attempts, even those of the scientific method, as they attempt to formalize and quantify a chaotic and disordered system. Similarly, linguistic cognition fails to adequately communicate the complexities of life. In the reciprocal language-thought reflex, unsophisticated language yields dichotomous thought, which in turn leads to frustration when we attempt to fit our daily experiences or our psychological experiences into static worldviews and the internal narratives that accompany them. Acknowledging this human tendency, Ellis recommends using elegant and moderate language in our internal monologues, avoiding absolutist language like can't, always, never, and must, the overuse of which Ellis humorously refers to as masturbation. You can see the Taoist influence in Ellis' work here. A lot of Taoist meditation, for example, is to identify binaries in the mind, categories in the mind, and then to deconstruct them in consciousness. Ellis is very careful with his language to avoid creating these sorts of binaries in the mind, and also to acknowledge paradox. Here's an example of Ellis's suggested language for his reader to avoid extremism in ideology or religion. He suggests this: I shall try to avoid extremism, to refuse to see things as all good or all bad. I shall try to avoid extreme optimism or extreme pessimism. A more balanced, more realistic approach will be my usual goal, but even that goal I shall not take to extremes. You can see how the language usual, try, sometimes, all of this is to impress upon the reader the flexibility of the mind. If we use this kind of nuanced language, we soon come to realize, or really believe, that many of the lines that we draw in the sand are rubbable outable. And this forces the mind to constantly work, constantly reframe and moderate perceptions of the world. This is the kind of work, both psychologically speaking and from the perspective of the brain, that leads to health.